Today we are looking at a case from the first part of the 20th century, so sit back as we go to England. In 1908, Liverpool was a bustling port city at the heart of Britain's maritime trade. Its docks were among the busiest in the world, handling goods, passengers and immigrants from across the globe. The city had a notable Irish population due to decades of immigration, and its neighbourhoods reflected this diversity in their unique character and atmosphere. However, life for working class residents was challenging. Overcrowded tenements, poor sanitation and limited access to healthcare were common. Despite these hardships, community bonds were strong, and local pubs, churches and markets served as hubs of social life. Industrially, Liverpool was thriving, with shipbuilding, textiles and manufacturing driving its economy, and although education was becoming more accessible, with efforts to improve literacy among the working class, child labour was still prevalent. The Edwardian era's technological advancements, such as the introduction of the electric trams, were transforming daily life, making transportation easier for many. Yet stark inequalities persisted, with wealthier residents enjoying spacious homes in the suburbs, while the poor struggled to make ends meet in cramped inner-city housing. Margaret Kirby, affectionately known as Madge to her family and friends, lived at 55 Romilly Street, a small, modest terraced house, typical of the working-class neighbourhoods that developed during Liverpool's industrial boom. The house, like many others on the streets, was a red brick structure with narrow windows and a simple functional design built to accommodate the growing population of labourers and tradespeople who had flocked to the city in search of work. Madge shared the home with her father, David Kirby, a hard-working plumber, and her brothers and sisters, in the heart of a community where neighbours often exchanged friendly greetings as they went about their day. The family's life had been marked by hardship, as Madge's mother had tragically passed away in December 1907, leaving a void in the small household. This loss cast a shadow over the home, and Madge, though only 7 years old, had taken on a quiet maturity as she helped to care for her younger siblings. The street outside their house was always busy with the sounds of life. Horse-drawn carts clattering along the cobblestones, children playing in the alleys, and workers coming and going. Despite the challenges people faced, there was a sense of solidarity on Romilly Street, where the Kirbys, like many others, worked hard to make ends meet in a rapidly changing world. On the afternoon of the 6th of January 1908, Madge went to school, and after returning home she played outside near Farnham Street, in the Kensington area of the city. At around 4:30 p.m, a man approached her while she was with a younger brother and a friend named Annie McGovern. The man offered them sweets and promised to take them to buy more, while Annie refused to go. Madge, who was innocent and trusting, without hesitation, agreed to go with him, leaving her friend and brother behind. She told them that she would be back soon with sweets that they could all share, but as time passed, Madge did not return. Annie and Madge's brother waited, but when it became dark, Annie took the small boy to his home at 55 Romilly Street, which was just a short walk away. She told Madge's father that Madge had gone off with a stranger and had not come back. Mr. Kirby, still mourning the loss of his wife, who had died 3 weeks earlier, was shocked and immediately contacted the police. The news of the 7-year-old's disappearance spread quickly, and witnesses began to come forward with information. People from the neighbourhood and beyond, having heard what had happened to the little girl, going off with a stranger, offered what they could and said that they would assist in a search. Along with the police, members of the public looked for Madge, hoping that they might find the child wandering alone on the streets, unsure of how to get home. Once officers had made a few inquiries, they distributed Madge's description to the press. It was written that she had prominent eyebrows, blue eyes, and a fresh complexion, and that when she was last seen, she had been wearing a black skirt with short sleeves, a blue pinafore, and a black velvet bonnet with black strings. She also had black stockings and lace-up boots. The investigators worked tirelessly, following up on every lead. Several individuals came forward, reporting that they had seen Madge with a man, but most had assumed that he was a relative due to his calm manner. Robert Woodside, a shopkeeper who had known the young girl for a while, told officers that he had seen her holding hands with a stranger near Roper Hill at around 5:30 p.m. He said that he called out her name, but when he did, the man immediately picked her up, and Mr. Woodside noticed that she began to cry. He added that the man then quickly walked away, but concerned, Mr. Woodside said he followed them, but lost sight of them as the man carried Madge up Roper Hill. After this, Mr. Woodside added that he informed Madge's father, Mr. David Kirby, before going to report the incident to the police at Prescott Street. Another witness, named Jane Hughes, who worked at a cocoa shop on Brownlow Hill, told officers that at 6:30 p.m. she recalled serving Madge and a stranger, who ordered tea, buttered bread and a cake. She said that Madge was crying, and as she did, the man calmly wiped away her tears, seemingly unfazed by the child's distress. Jane also described how he appeared to be completely unbothered by the situation, despite the evident upset of the young girl. Jane added that this odd contrast between the man's composure and the girl's evident fear had made her quite uneasy, but she didn't think to question the man about why the child seemed so inconsolable. An errand boy also told the police that he had seen Madge with a strange man near Roper Hill. As the night wore on, despite an extensive search by the police, which was aided by tracking dogs, there were no further leads or sightings of Madge. This left both the authorities and the public with an increasing sense of unease and uncertainty about the little girl's whereabouts. The head constable, known for his deep commitment to the welfare of children, instructed his officers to spare no effort in solving the mystery of the missing girl. He expressed hope that someone with information, or who might have seen the child, would come forward to assist the police in their mission to reunite her with her heartbroken father. Initially, it was feared that the girl might have been taken to a secluded location. However, a meticulous search of unoccupied houses yielded no trace of her. Another possibility that the investigators explored was that she might have been taken in by a Catholic home or convent. But when the police visited these establishments, there was no sign of Madge. In addition to local efforts, the police also reached out to the authorities in America, where Madge's family had relatives. Unfortunately, their inquiries brought no results. The girl's father had been left to care for his other young children and was overwhelmed with grief over his 7-year-old daughter's disappearance. Detective Inspector Moore and Detective Sergeant Howell dedicated themselves tirelessly to the case. They were determined to uncover the truth and bring the missing girl home. They travelled extensively, visiting numerous towns and cities, following up on every potential lead, no matter how small or unlikely it seemed. Their commitment was unwavering, as they interviewed witnesses, questioned locals, and pieced together fragments of information in the hope of finding a breakthrough. Despite their relentless efforts and the countless hours they poured into the investigation, each clue ultimately led to a dead end. The lack of progress left the case shrouded in uncertainty, adding to the growing frustration and despair felt by the detectives and the girl's grieving family. Some speculated that the case might be connected to the unsolved murder of 10-year-old Elizabeth Pears, who on the 28th of October 1905 had been sent to the shops by her mother but never returned. While her mother initially assumed that she had stayed overnight at a friend's house, the following morning Elizabeth's body was found, and a post-mortem concluded that she had died from shock from her brutal assault. Although the search efforts for Madge Kirby continued, as time passed, the intensity of the investigation diminished, and the once urgent hunt for answers gave way to the slow rhythm of everyday life. While no one truly forgot about Madge, the missing girl, who had captured the hearts of the community, was spoken about less frequently, and the flurry of speculation and concern began to fade. People started to move on, their lives resuming a semblance of normality. On the morning of the 15th of August 1908, a man named Thomas Moody, who worked as a woodcarver, made a discovery that would reignite the tragic case of the missing girl. While walking along Great Newton Street, off Brownlow Hill, he noticed a sack discarded near some steps outside the property. Curiosity compelled him to investigate, and upon opening the sack, he was horrified to find the decomposed remains of a child. The police were immediately contacted, and officers arrived to secure the scene. It appeared that the child had been dead for several months, which raised unsettling questions about where the remains had been hidden during the intervening period. The sack and its grim contents were transported to the Princess Street mortuary for further examination. Although the advanced state of decomposition made visual identification impossible, the child's clothing provided a crucial clue. The garments matched exactly what Madge had been wearing on the day she disappeared, evidence that left little doubt as to the identity of the remains. Madge's father, Mr. David Kirby, was summoned to confirm the heartbreaking discovery. Confronted with the tragic confirmation of his worst fears, he was plunged into profound grief. The police quickly determined that the body had likely been hidden for months in an abandoned house, one that was now being demolished. But the timing of its appearance raised troubling questions. Who had concealed her, and why had they chosen now to reveal her grim fate? The newspapers were very keen to report the story and asked how officers, after supposedly searching so many vacant houses, had not found the sack earlier. The authorities ignored these criticisms and launched a determined investigation. They sifted through the fragmented clues in a search for answers. The case centered on identifying the individual who had moved the body from the cellar of the abandoned house onto the street. However, despite the police's efforts, no arrests were immediately made. The public provided information, and although some leads came from practical observations, others were offered by clairvoyants and dreamers, who, although eager to contribute to the pursuit of justice, were not at all helpful. Among the tangible evidence, a broken wooden door stood out. It bore distinct handprints in the dust, a silent witness to the perpetrator's movements, and a chilling reminder of his calculated precision. There were also alleged sightings of a man who had recently been seen carrying sacks near the house. As the investigation deepened, there were new discoveries that showed the ingenuity of the person responsible. The same individual who had lured Madge away was considered to have orchestrated the body's removal with unnerving precision. It was believed that under the cover of darkness, he scaled a wall at the rear of the property, entered the cellar with the aid of a crowbar, before carefully carrying the remains out through the front door. The sack containing the body was left conspicuously, but not carelessly, on the streets. Adding to the macabre scene, the sack contained local newspapers, dated just days prior to the body being discovered. The man's familiarity with the area was evident. When he had taken the little girl, he had navigated the streets with confidence, his every move suggesting a deep understanding of his surroundings. Yet despite the mounting clues and relentless efforts of the police, the perpetrator remained elusive. A letter, believed to have been written by the murderer, soon found its way into the hands of the Liverpool police. The writer had knowledge of the crime and offered a chilling account of the events leading up to the girl's death. They claimed to have taken the girl to the World Fair and spent over 2 hours there before heading to the house. The writer added that there had once been a lodger on Great Newton Street and still possessed the key to the front door of the property, and on that night in January, under the cover of darkness, they took the girl there and entered through the front door. The letter continued with a harrowing confession, and although the author did not go into detail, they suggested that the police would soon discover how Madge had died. They then explained that at 5:35 a.m. on the 15th of August 1908, they had returned to the house and once there, decided to reveal to the world what had happened to the little girl. The writer provided a clue, identifying themselves as a regular at a local public house. They ended the letter with a cryptic farewell, suggesting that the authorities would struggle to find them, no matter how hard they tried. The unsigned letter left police with more questions than answers, but it reignited the investigation and sent shockwaves through the community as the search for the murderer grew more desperate. The funeral of 7-year-old Madge Kirby took place in the afternoon of the 13th of August, and it was marked by an extraordinary outpouring of public sympathy. Despite the rain, thousands of people lined the streets in order to pay their respects. The small coffin, covered with floral tributes from relatives, schoolchildren and friends, was a poignant reminder of the community's grief. Among the mourners was Annie McGowan, the little girl who had been with Madge when the man had attempted to lure them away from the park. While the man had managed to convince Madge to leave with him, Annie had refused to go, and her testimony had been crucial in the investigation. Earlier in the day, the Liverpool city coroner had opened an inquest into the death of the 7-year-old little girl. Madge's father, David Kirby, attended the inquest and confirmed that he recognised the clothes on the body as having belonged to his daughter. However, he said that he was unable to identify her due to the body being in such an advanced state of decomposition. He also said that the last time he saw his daughter alive was on the 5th of January, the day before she disappeared. Although very emotional, Mr. Kirby spoke of the efforts he had made alongside the police and others to try and find Madge. The sack in which the body was discovered was identified as a common sugar canvas bag, making it difficult to trace its origin. The inquiry was then adjourned until the 10th of September as the search for answers continued. When it resumed, more witnesses gave evidence. Several of them reported seeing a suspicious man near the property in the days before Madge's body was found. The 3 letters from the alleged perpetrator were read out. The first and third were handwritten in pencil, but the second one had been typed and warned that they could strike again at any time. However, the identity of the writer and the perpetrator remained unknown. Although the police believed that the author of the letters was an educated person, they were unsure if they were from the person behind the crime or a terrible hoax. When the inquest ended, the jury concluded that the crime was a deliberate act committed by an as yet unknown perpetrator. Just 2 weeks later, on the 28th of September, Mr. David Kirby, the father of little Madge Kirby, died at his home in Liverpool. 2 years previously, his mother had passed away, and towards the end of 1907, his wife had died, shortly after giving birth to their 7th child. The worry and anxiety over the fate of his daughter had taken a toll on Mr. Kirby's health, and his death came after a brief illness. He left behind 6 young children. The police investigation into the murder of Madge Kirby continued, but despite the best efforts of law enforcement, the perpetrator was never caught, and the crime remains unsolved. Hello everyone, and thank you so much for listening. As usual, please leave any comments or feedback you may have, and I hope to see you all again in the next Brief Case